Hello and welcome to the Standpoint. Can you believe it? May is almost ending. Mel, this month is ending. Oh, but hey, we are looking forward to Father's Month next month. That's in June. The whole of June is Father's Month. And we want to wrap up the month of May with health, women's health, a condition that some consider as rare, but it is gradually affecting a lot of young people in their youthful ages, in their 20s and 30s in this country. And we need to talk about it. That's multiple sclerosis. I'm sure you haven't, some of you haven't heard the name, but it's an autoimmune disease that needs to be talked about. And that's what we are going to do today. We have a parent, we have two doctors who specialize in these areas and are going to educate us on it. Not to scare us, but to give us knowledge, because knowledge is power. What you know will not kill you. When you know it, you seek help and you do something about it. And hey, we have a new set. How do you find my new set? Yes, it's a new set. And of course, we had to introduce it in May before we get into June. And I say thank you to Stunning Florals and Deco for these beautiful plants and flowers that they have given us to decorate the set. We wanted to give it a garden look, relaxing in the garden and making sure that we feel very comfortable whilst we have amazing and beautiful discussions. Welcome to the Standpoint. Let me say thank you to GTP for my cloth. My dress is by Liran Collection. Thank you so much to her. Makeup products by Note Cosmetics and beautifully applied by the one and only at @IAM_J Cloud. We take a break. When we come back, multiple sclerosis. And today, 30th of May, the world is commemorating this day. We'll be back. Welcome back to the Standpoint. Yes, today is the World MS Day. That's multiple sclerosis, and we are going to get educated on that. Trust me, I know very little about it, so I'm going to get educated as well. Information is power. I keep telling you that the days when they say what you don't know doesn't kill you are long gone. Now, what you don't know will kill you, and what you know you can prevent, or you can seek treatment for and know how to manage it and live longer with it, irrespective of how serious it is. I was trying very hard to choose my words, but no matter how serious it is, when you have the knowledge, you know what to do. Let me say thank you to our sponsors, GTP. GTP is on the OGA campaign. Now, OGA is original, genuine, and authentic GTP. The best way to make sure you are buying the OGA GTP is to make sure you buy from any wooden shop or store, or go to any of the accredited GTP dealers across the nation. They are nationwide, they're everywhere. Or go online and buy from www.buygtp.com. www.buygtp.com. That's the OGA campaign. Let's support our own. We also say thank you to Esron Balloons and Accessories, everything balloons and accessories. And the balloons are for all occasions. Just make sure you contact them. Thank you so much to Afrax Classicals. They deal in handbags and sunglasses and shoes and what have you. And of course, at Closet, they also, I would love wearing my abaya, kaftan. And then other dresses as well. So follow them on Instagram and on Facebook, and make sure you always look good. Tell them you heard about them on the Standpoint, and you stand to gain a discount from it. Now to my set, to this all important discussion. I have three professionals here who have the knowledge on this MS. In fact, my makeup artist asked me, "Mommy, what is that? What is multiple sclerosis?" He said he's never heard the word before. So it is good, and we are going to learn about it. Seated right opposite me across the table is Dr. Frida Dodd Glover, who is a specialist physician at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. Welcome back to the Standpoint.
Thank you.
Next to her, I have Mr. Kwame Tinedu. Tinedu. Yes, he's a caregiver. Welcome to the Standpoint. Right, and next to me, I have Dr. Augustine Chawifeli, who is a neurologist at 37 Military Hospital, and then she is also at Uracare. Thanks for coming, and good to have you on the Standpoint once again.
Thank you very much.
As always, I love your beats.
Thank you.
Now, today is World MS Day. We'll get to what MS is about, but for how long have we been marking, I don't know if it's right to use the word celebrate. Commemorate, okay, that day.
So we have been commemorating Multiple Sclerosis Day for the last 25 to 30 years. Here in Ghana, though, for several reasons, which we will get into in the conversation, this year will probably be our first year of formally acknowledging multiple sclerosis as a problem that affects our people. Commemorating the day.
It. So I take it that it's a condition that's been around, it's been in this country. It affects quite a number of people, but this is the first time that there's going to be that deliberate or conscious effort to bring awareness to people.
That's correct.
That it says this. Okay, so now let's get into it. What is MS?
So multiple sclerosis, as the name suggests, is an illness that affects multiple sites within the brain. It is part of a group of diseases that we call autoimmune diseases. And that is, to put it very basically, is a disease where the immune system, we all have immune systems, that's what we use to fight off infections. And the immune system gets a little bit confused and chooses to attack the lining of the nerve cells that we have in our brains and spinal cords, thinking that it's a foreign thing that it has to attack and get rid of, and that's where the disease comes from.
Okay, now let me come to Dr. Dodd Glover, and what I know about autoimmune diseases, which I've done quite a number of programs on, and at the moment you're trying to solicit funds to support one of my daughters who was on a program years ago to talk about it, and she's in a very difficult place right now. Is that most of the time we don't really know exactly what pushes it or to the fore, what makes it attack the brain and then the body. Is it the same with MS?
Yes, it is. So it's autoimmune, like Dr. Chawi said. We don't really know what causes it, but there are certain things that are postulated as risk factors, okay? And this is also one of the reasons why multiple sclerosis has not, for want of a better word, has not been so common in Ghana, but lately we are diagnosing more and more of it. So one of the things is that we've noticed that for people that stay away from the equator, okay, so people of Caucasian origin, the disease is more prevalent amongst them, okay? But for us that are around the equator, not so much. The postulate is that probably because we have more vitamin D, we're exposed to the sun. Okay, then there's also the genetic risk. So there are certain things that are found on our human cells that if you have a particular type of it, okay, they are called human leukocyte antigens, you have a particular type of it, you may be more predisposed to getting multiple sclerosis. And then just being a female puts you at a higher risk of developing autoimmune conditions in general. We don't know why.
I was going to say why.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. So we're not really sure what exactly the cause is. But then when you have, a combination of these environmental factors, the genetic factors, and then sometimes some kind of infections, these all come together to possibly trigger the autoimmunity, where the immune cells in your body that are supposed to help fight infection actually go into the brain. And then they think that a part of the brain, which is the covering of the nerve cells or the nerve wires, let me put it that way, is actually a foreign body and attacks it.
Kwame, I'll come to you, but let me come to Dr. Philip. And it still doesn't make sense to me, I'm sorry, but why? Why is it more prevalent among women? How come it's now suddenly affecting more and more, people in outside of the world and indeed Ghana? And how come it affects some very young people who you think that having to live a certain way, having been exposed to some of the risk factors that Dr. Glover talks about? What is happening?
So there were several questions in that.
I know,
I
right?
picked three of them. The first big question, the why, that's a very philosophical question. And to be honest, we don't know the answer to that question in a majority of diseases. As Dr. Glover mentioned, we do have certain theories, hypotheses, and postulates as to why these diseases happen. But to point to a particular thing and say that this is what caused it, we don't know yet. We don't know that for many diseases. We don't know that for a lot of the autoimmune diseases, and for multiple sclerosis in particular. Again, as she mentioned, the theories about hormonal exposures, sunlight exposures, these are all theories that seem to bear out based on the geographic location of the individuals. But coming to the next question, why does it seem like we're having more of it now in our area in Ghana, near the equator, where you would think that it shouldn't occur based on some of the theories? The answer to that is, again, not a simple answer. The first answer is it probably did exist, but we were not diagnosing it. Because the things we need to diagnose a lot of diseases, and these group of diseases in particular, are not readily available in our healthcare system. If they are available, they are often out of the reach of the ordinary person. And so I think because as a society we're changing in terms of socioeconomic status, more things are becoming available, they're becoming cheaper over the years, and that is why we are finding out more and more about the disease in our own people.
Right. Mr. Tinedu, you've been described as a caregiver. What exactly do you do?
I have a son, 41 years old, still in my profession. He used to be the digital engineer for PCM Government District Assembly at the age of about 29. And just like you were saying, sometimes he just started complaining about headaches. And after time, we thought it was like typhoid. Later on, a friend asked him to go to Colombo. There he was diagnosed with having Sclerosis. So it's not been easy, Now he's not working. He's at home. He's immobile now. He's just like that. He's so sad. Like first son, and he's well educated, like I told you.
Yeah.
And somebody who has contributed to the development of this country. He was the first district engineer for that. The beginning of that district was one who led the construction of the assembly offices, the DC, Bangalore, and everything. Right. And nowadays he's not doing it. And it's not easy. We have to cook for him sometimes. I have to make sure that he's sort of the right people on the place. It's the mother who is doing a lot, but we all put our heads together to make sure that he gets the necessary treatment. So
I can imagine, and for a parent who has educated, his son to that level, has, I'm sure you've had your proud moments, being the first civil engineer to do all these things. You've had your bragging rights, your boasting moment, and then suddenly you are told that this is the cause. Right, so I will take a break. When we come back, we'll get into how do we identify the symptoms and how to handle it. You're watching The Standpoint. Today is World MS Day, and it's the 30th of May, the day, the month that we celebrate motherhood. And we've been told that MS is quite prevalent among the women. And unfortunately, like many of these conditions, it has the face of a woman. So it's only appropriate that we talk about it during the Women's Month or Mothers Month. Let me say thank you to all our supporters. Awake Purified Mineral Water and Puma Drinks by Casa Preco Company Limited, Gogot Yogurt, Juice Time, Antivera House of Food. Thank you to Mrs. Sofori Poco and her family. Thank you to Cake Technique, the Kodam's Gift and Stationery, and Yep Cleaning Services. We're so grateful to all of them. We take a break. When we come back, we will continue this very, very educational program. We'll be back. Welcome back to The Standpoint. Let me say thank you to GTP for my cloth. My dress is by Liran Collections, and makeup products by Note Cosmetics, and beautifully applied by @IAM_J Claude. Thank you so much to everyone and each and every company that supports us or sponsors us. Keep supporting us, please. The Standpoint will be 13 years in July. Yes, 13 years of consistency and making sure we bring you quality programs and discuss issues affecting women, young people, and children across our country and beyond. Dr. Don Glover, you made a comment when we were about to end the first part, before I went to Mr. Tinedu. You said we found ourselves now having more and more cases. What is the prevalence rate? You at the department, I'm sure you see some of these cases.
So it's difficult to give an actual prevalence because we haven't done extensive studies. But I can tell you that at least between 2003 to 2019, at the Neurology Department of Kolebu, we saw about 150 cases of demyelinating conditions. Now, this means conditions where the nerve covering of the brain has been eroded or has been affected in some way or the other. And multiple sclerosis falls under this umbrella. Okay. And out of these 150, 50 of them were cases of multiple sclerosis. So you can see the time frame, 2003 to 2019. We are not seeing that many over that time period. But like Dr. Charlie Feli said, because now we have the imaging tools available, we have the lab facilities available to actually make the diagnosis. Over the past few years, we've actually made more diagnoses. Exactly. So, like I said, 50 out of 150 over that time period and counting. There are a number of people who are not...
It's a third. It represents a third.
Exactly. There are a number of people who fall under this demyelinating conditions that unfortunately are not able to afford the lab tests and the imaging. So they still remain undiagnosed, but we know that they have something going on. Exactly.
Something going on, but we don't know exactly what it is. What is the age group that's affecting them?
So multiple sclerosis is a disease of the young. So it's the majority of patients will fall between the age, for their first attack, so to speak, falls between the ages of 20 to about 35. You can have children diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, but that's even less common than the multiple sclerosis itself. And after 40, the likelihood that the disease that you're now diagnosing, unless you have an appropriate history for it, is also unlikely that it is multiple sclerosis. So it's the young, most active part of the population that we have.
No, that's hard.
That is harsh.
Is it treatable?
Absolutely, it is treatable. I won't go as far as to say that it's curable. Once the diagnosis is made, it stays with you. But it's definitely treatable. There are medications that we use for the acute attacks to reduce the deficit or the damage that it does on the brain.
Hold on, Dr. Charlie Feli. When you say attacks, does it mean that you have periods when it becomes severe, and then there are periods when you're just okay and everything?
So in order for me to answer that question, I think I need to say what happens to you when you get a attack, and then how the attack behaves and the different kinds of ways the disease behaves in different people. So because it affects the central nervous system, almost anything that we do as human beings can be affected. Your eyesight, your speech, your balance, the way you move, the way you understand. Theoretically, seizures are also possible. Mood disorders are also possible. So the entire brain can be affected by the disease based on where the damage happens in the brain. So for many people, the first sign of the disease is a sudden loss of vision, or sudden weakness, or sudden incoordination, they're unable to balance properly. Now, the most common kind of disease course, and when we say course, it means how the disease travels over time, is the remitting and relapsing. So you get an attack when there's something clearly wrong with you. You can't see, you can't walk, you can't speak properly. It's different in different people depending on where the damage is. And then you are either treated or it gets better on its own. Then you go back to relative normal. Then you're fine for a while. Then something triggers the disease again, and then it happens again. Then we have the secondary progressive. So you have your attack, something goes wrong with you, then you get better. Then you're fine for a while, you have another attack, and this time you don't go back to completely normal. So a little bit is left behind. Then you're okay for a while, then you have another attack, and then again you don't go back to entirely normal. Then there's a relatively small group, but they are the most unfortunate, is the disease doesn't have the attack, you're better, attack, you're better. It just continues to get worse over time. So the treatment, how we treat the disease depends on whether you're in a phase of attack, or you've had several attacks and now you're getting worse in general, or you want to prevent those attacks. So we have medications that we use for the attack. Those are usually steroids and similar medications. And then we have what we call our disease-modifying therapies that sort of train the immune system not to continue to attack the nervous system, the brain, and the spinal cord, so that you don't have new attacks and new damage to the nervous system.
Did any of you treat or have attend to Mr. Tinedu's son?
No.
I believe so.
You did?
I believe so. I believe my colleagues did treat him, yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay. You did it. So, what category does your son fall into?
The second one, the one.
So
Yeah.
you've had good days and bad days, up and down, or it just keeps getting worse.
I think whenever I should put this way, it started with loss of balance, then had issues with then also, when we see, we think that he's drunk, but it's not alcohol. Then then I think now what we see is that for the past 6 months, what happened was that he couldn't walk. He's now in bed. So now we're in pampers. We need pampers and we need to toilet. The mother has to apply the salt we have. So you really need to salt it.
So he has no control over the, how the body functions, and he just.
But he speaks. He tries to speak, but something that's issues with his speech here. So there's a medicine that he takes which helps him, to speak better. And
so how long has your son been going through this? Has had this condition?
10 years.
10 years now, and it's been just getting.
And now we see that it's worsened.
It's worsened now.
But the doctor said that I probably told you that now I think we are using a set time medication that will teach him, that will check the spread of the disease. That's what he told me. We're thinking of maybe looking at another method Russia and they talk about, is it, I don't know.
Doing something.
Stem cells?
Stem cell. But
Not,
Taro
not
told me,
proven therapy
yeah,
yet.
so they told me
You'll
that I
spend your
should
money and get no results.
Yes, he told me that I should forget it, and he clearly told me that I should forget it. And thus he told me that he's one of the best people around, and I believe so.
What I want to find out is it now easier to identify the different types of autoimmune diseases? Some of them, the names I can't mention. But, you know, sometimes you just know that it's an autoimmune disease, but the specific one, because I believe there are specific treatment for specific types of. Is it easier to identify, especially since we are talking about MS now?
Yeah, so since you brought it up, yes. So there's actually like a spectrum of disorders. There's one that's very similar to multiple sclerosis, and as I mentioned, multiple sclerosis tended to be more common, you know, in the temperate regions. But among Africans, there's another type known as neuromyelitis optica, or NMO, which usually would affect both eyes first, okay, and then it can go on to affect long sections of the spinal cord, okay. So it looks similar to MS, but we need to do specific tests to be able to separate it from MS. And then there's some other ones that I don't want to go into, but yes, now we have the ability. It's just that these tests are not done locally. So once we go in to take the samples, they have to be flown outside the country, and they're quite expensive.
So in the meantime, whilst we are waiting for the diagnosis to come, what do you do? How do you manage the case?
So the good thing is that most of the autoimmune conditions will respond like an attack to the corticosteroids, okay? They'll sort of shut down the immune system so that you have some control over the symptoms until we are able to know exactly what we are dealing with. And at that point, we can give the specific disease-modifying therapies.
What's the theme for this year's commemoration?
So for multiple sclerosis in particular, we're talking about connections. Okay. And this means connections between the individuals that have the illness and their healthcare providers and parts of society that they require in order to be able to live as fully functional a life as possible. Because the goal of treatment of any disease, really, not just multiple sclerosis, is to improve quality of life. And the quality of life, unfortunately, doesn't depend only on the patient and the doctor. There's so many other factors in between that are required. The public awareness, lack of stigma, because unfortunately, culturally, we have stigma against practically every disease. The difficult thing that some people
diseases that we don't understand.
Which is most of them.
Anyway. Well, you're watching The Standpoint, and as I said early on, knowledge is power. What you know can save your life. What you don't know can kill you. So thank you very much for sharing. We haven't ended the program yet. We'll be back to round it up. But let me say thank you to our sponsors. That's GTP. GTP is running the OGAP campaign. That's original, genuine, and authentic. Making sure that you buy the original, genuine, authentic GTP fabrics from any wooden store across the country or any of the accredited dealers nationwide, or go to www.buygtp.com to buy. Thank you to Esther and Balloons and Accessories. Everything balloons and accessories, you get it there at Mokola, just into the Rollins Park, or at around Flower Court, near Palace Mall, the huge Assemblies of God building. They're just adjacent to that as well, on top of first floor of some orange story building, and you get everything for every occasion. Next month we are celebrating fathers. Yay! It's Father's Month in June. And so make sure you celebrate your father or father figure in your life. And Mother's Day is not ended yet. It's still Mother's Month, so we're still celebrating. We have today and tomorrow to end it. We take a break. When we come back, we'll continue this discussion. Welcome back to The Standpoint. Thank you to Away Purified Mineral Water and Puma Drinks by Casapreco Company Limited. Gogot Yogurt. Every woman, yogurt is very good for you. And if you want to go for yogurt, it has to be Gogot Yogurt, also made in Ghana, produced right here in Ghana. Thank you to Juice Time, from the farm through the process into the bottle. They do it all. They own the farm and they have the produce from their farm to make the juice for us, so you can trust it. 100% fruit juices. And we say thank you to House of Food, Antivera Cake Technique, Yep Cleaning Services, Kodam's Gift and Stationery. And remember, this program is aired on 5 platforms. It's on Joy Prime on Sundays, 6:30 p.m., repeated on Thursdays at 11 p.m. It's also on EBN TV. It's on Facebook, YouTube, and our website, www.thestandpoint.com, powered by A Dream Over. We are so grateful to all our supporters and all those who sponsored us for the Mother's Month program. We are grateful. And for the new sponsors for Father's Month, we are grateful to you as well. Now, Dr. Chawefeli, you talked about the fact that it's quite difficult to diagnose. And when I thought that it's not easy to diagnose, I just learned that the sample has to be taken somewhere else, and it takes some time before it's diagnosed. Now, but what does it take to make the right diagnosis?
Okay, so with multiple sclerosis, like nearly all our diseases, there are specific criteria that the doctor who's making that diagnosis needs to follow to say that, yes, this meets all the criteria and this is multiple sclerosis, or it meets some of the criteria, it could be multiple sclerosis, or it doesn't meet any of the criteria, you look for another disease to explain what is happening with the patient. But in order to be able to do that, the doctor requires imaging, and not just a CT scan, but an MRI. An MRI, that's magnetic resonance imaging. It sees the brain and the spinal cord in much better detail than a CT scan would. You need to give the individual undergoing the test contrast, and that's expensive as well. You need to do more than one section, so it's not just an MRI of the brain and then that's it, you've done the test that you need. Sometimes it requires more than one, in fact, almost always it requires more than one section, and sometimes it's every single section, so that's quite expensive. Sometimes if those tests are not enough to give you everything you need to fulfill the criteria, you need to do what we call a lumbar puncture, and that's when some of the fluid that surrounds the brain is sent for analysis. And that is where those tests get expensive because they need to be sent out. Most of the time, your history, so how the disease happened in the individual, what changed over time, the things that you see when you examine the patient, and the imaging, and sometimes in addition the cerebrospinal fluid analysis, that gives you the diagnosis most of the time. But you have to suspect that disease so that you know what to look for. If you don't suspect that disease, you won't know to look for it, and therefore you won't do the things that are necessary, and then the person doesn't get their diagnosis.
Dr. Ejawefeli and Dr. Glover, one of these I need to have two of you to have a personality interview with you. I'm just looking and listening to you and myself. Why did you choose this hard, difficult area of medicine? Why did you choose this area? What made you to? And then let me ask you. Because you see the most frustrating conditions, most difficult conditions, the ones that you can hardly cure or treat and all that. But you seem to.
So you're very right. But it's that same thing that makes it so fascinating. There is nothing you do, nothing at all that you do that doesn't involve your nervous system. So it's everywhere, it's in everything, and it's so fascinating. And unfortunately, when it does go wrong, it is terrible, it is tragic. But our jobs are really not to just say that, oh, you have a disease of this or you have a disease of that. Our jobs are to make sure that that precious, precious nervous system that makes you stays intact. And that is what is so fulfilling.
And that's also tough.
Very tough, extremely tough, but very fulfilling.
And I'm sure one of the prayers you pray every day is that may it be in my lifetime the way we can have cure for these conditions and diseases.
Absolutely.
I'm sure that's one of the prayers anyway. So Dr. Dodd Glover, some of the symptoms that we talked about, just going through some of them, it can be, attributed to other conditions. You feel dizzy all of a sudden, you have, you black out. The first thing, maybe you may think it's maybe anemia, or maybe it's malaria or something. So what comes to your mind won't be to go and see a specialist.
No.
You go to the normal hospital.
Exactly.
So the first port of call is not with somebody like you or Dr. Chawe Feli.
No, usually the patient would go to a primary care physician. And this is where we are here, to create awareness. Because, like you said, it could be malaria, it could be anything. So the primary care physician needs to have a high index of suspicion to be able to do the appropriate referral. Now, if the person comes with eye pain or, say, blurred vision, or they're having double vision, it's likely that an astute physician would send them to an eye doctor. An eye doctor would do their tests, and probably there they would refer to the neurologist. Okay. Sometimes the patient would go, like Dr. Shawi Feli said, they can get attacks, even without treatment, they'll get better. So the patient might not actually follow through. They might go and see the doctor once, and then once they get better, they're fine. But with subsequent attacks, this is where, once again, the doctor needs to take a good history, because when they know that this happened, they got better, and it's happened again, then at least they'll start to think that, okay, maybe there's something going on. Occasionally, they'll present with different symptoms. So maybe one time they had the eye problem, the next time they've lost balance, the next time they can't walk. It's very weird that one person will be having all these things. So at this point, you start to think these are multiple sites or multiple areas that are being affected. Hence the name multiple sclerosis, right? So it's at this point that usually people would piece these together. But if you're not thinking about the condition to begin with, you cannot piece it together. So this is why we are here today, creating awareness.
Yes, right. Because I'm just thinking, if you go to a primary health provider who is not, quote unquote, knowledgeable in these things or in these areas, you could be walking around for a long time by the time you realize it's too late.
Yes. And you're disabled, probably.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and to be attributed to all sorts of things. Yeah. Dr. Chawife, you want to add something?
Yes, so Dr. Glover very eloquently put it that usually it's the eye that is the first symptom. So most people would have seen either referred from their primary healthcare physician or gone themselves to see the eye doctor. The other kinds of doctors that people tend to go and see based on what symptoms are happening are the ear, nose, and throat. Because of the dizziness, they think there's something wrong with their inner ear. They can see the urologist, and it's often a male that does that, or their gynecologist, if they're female, due to urgency. So that's when you feel the urge to urinate, and if you don't get to the toilet quickly, you'll have an accident, or you sit down to pee and nothing happens. Loss of control of the subtle control of the bladder, and so you can see your urologist for that. And then sometimes it is just the doctor who is so baffled by what is going on, they ask for an MRI if they're lucky, and then they see something weird and they say, oh, I have to go send you to the neurologist. The problem with our kinds of diseases is that no one knows that, oh, I have a neurological disease, or I have that kind of disease. So it takes the primary healthcare physician and the whole network of primary healthcare to know who to direct the patient to. So that is where the awareness is also extremely important. So the population, so that they know, no, you're not okay, you know your body, it's not functioning properly, go see a doctor. Then the next step, the person who has to have the index of suspicion is the primary healthcare physician as well. If they do their job, then we have jobs to do.
And I guess a parent must be inquisitive as well, and must be proactive as well. Even if again, back to knowledge is power. So when parents also know when they see these things, like, okay, even the primary healthcare physician is not diagnosed, so no, I think I want to try it, I want to check this to make sure. I'm a health freak, I do my medicals like nobody's business, my friend says I'm the only one she knows who gives herself a birthday present by doing her medicals. But when you know your history, you make sure you are. But parents need to be very proactive and make sure we ask questions and go to the right place and talking about parents. Mr. Tinedo, I'm sure it's been very challenging.
Yes, that's yeah. He spends almost, he's a government contract. He spends almost his money on education. National health insurance doesn't cover it. Okay, so no. So it's like you're on your own. And I know in some jurisdictions about there's the insurance, to help, patients to sort of face some of this condition, but you don't have anything. So I plan in making a 1 month, coming out, maybe going to Parliament and carrying placard one day and drawing attention to. I'm trying to do that. But then the doctors, there's pressure on them, there's pressure on them because they are not many things to say that. There's pressure on them. I think we don't have enough neurologists in the country.
How many do we have so far?
We have 7 trained neurologists, and we have about another 7 to 10 in training currently.
So,
And that's it for a 30 million population country.
Wow. Is it an area that doctors don't like to take? I told you, I need to do with you why you chose that. I'm sure many people say, okay, why would I want to go into an area I'm always, seeing these challenges? But I mean, as you read, there are not many, so there's definitely pressure on them.
And the concentration is on colleagues.
That's
I
true.
know it's a referral, but you have regional hospitals. You don't have enough equipment. MRI, those are not looking at the regional hospitals. You have to come to, you have to go to a private facility. Because an MRI is about, I think, 15,000.
It's around 1,000.
1,500.
So you
Depending
do
on
that,
what
like,
section and how many
in
sections.
every section you need to pay for it. So it's not easy. Maybe you have to do about 4 times a year. Lab tests, series of lab tests that you have to do. They all cost. Then the medication is, see, so then you need some help from some of these pharmaceutical companies to also to offer sort of, I don't know whether you call it corporate social responsibility. So that those who cannot afford can then they should be.
So the fund set up to support.
The government should really do. I don't know what goes to the budget for neuro.
So I have to say the budget in general for healthcare is quite pitiful, and there is almost nothing allocated specifically for neurology.
That's the brain. The brain.
And it's everything that you do.
I remember 2 years ago we had to raise funds for a younger lady who had a brain aneurysm, Jennifer. I think you saw her as well, and she ended up at Eurocare. And I went there, some of the equipment I saw, then I was like, okay, I've been quite a number of hospitals, as a professional, I haven't seen these, anywhere else, and that's a private, entity. Dr. Glover, in conclusion, what do you leave us with?
Yeah, I would say that if anyone listening has any of these symptoms that we've mentioned, please make your way to the healthcare facility. There's help for you.
Okay. Mr. Tiledu.
Okay, I just want to ask that as we use this platform to draw the general public mind to this ailment, I ask that the government should really come up with policies that will help assist. Because some of these conditions, they need assistive equipment. I mean, the bed that you sleep on, it's usually the normal bed that you sleep on. Okay, you change entirely because now then you need to get people trained. Caregivers want to be trained. I don't think there's any institution in Ghana where you train. I'm not talking about nurses or caregivers.
I've been a health assistant for a very long time in UK and in the US as well. I've done that as well. So I remember when my mother was, amputated, due to diabetes, which eventually killed her. Some of the things I was doing for her at the hospital, the nurses were shocked that I could do it. But these things are basic needs that we need to have.
It should be a chemical to train caregivers. And that's how we train nurses. Because they are not the same. I don't think they are the same thing.
Not exactly.
Yeah.
10 years you've been taking care of your son. Yeah. God bless you.
Thank you.
And I'm sure you're still hoping.
Yeah, you raise that. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Because
I believe that. Yeah. Dr. Charity.
Well, I think most of it has been said. Just to reiterate, on every single level. First, the individual. If you feel your body is not functioning properly, by all means seek medical attention, hoping that it will somehow solve itself. Maybe once or twice it will, but eventually it will come back and catch you. So seek medical attention. On the level of our primary healthcare professionals, do due diligence and take your patients seriously, because you can have an individual that looks absolutely healthy and still have problems. And so you need to not say, oh, look at you, your labs are fine, there's nothing wrong with you. Because that's the most dangerous message you can send someone who has an illness and they feel that they have an illness and you tell them there's nothing wrong with you. Then we've already heard, we need to hold our office bearers accountable. Healthcare needs to be a priority. Education needs to be a priority. You can't have healthcare without education because you need to train the healthcare people. Healthcare is a huge industry. There are different kinds of help that an individual needs. You need doctors, you need nurses, you need health assistants, you need physiotherapists. It's a multidisciplinary thing, and no part of it is not important. Every single part of it is important. If part of it doesn't work, so for example, you've got fancy doctors, but you don't have nurses, system won't work. You have plenty nurses, but no doctors, system won't work. You don't have a cleaner, the system won't work. So that needs to be put together, and we need all of us on an individual level, think about your health before you get sick. Then you put measures in place, get some kind of insurance. The national health insurance is supposed to be helpful for that. And the national health insurance needs to be beefed up as well, because we need to understand the population that we're giving it to. And we can't boil all our diseases down to malaria and typhoid. Yeah, there's a lot more to it than that. So take care of yourself, plan ahead. The government also needs to plan for its people.
Well, malaria is still, I'm a national malaria. Malaria still, we want to make sure we get to the zero malaria, zone by 2030, which as AU is fighting for us together, and we can do it. But today we're talking about multiple sclerosis, and it's quite worrying, and we all need to add our voice. We need to support it. We need to be out there educating, not only on a day like this, but I thank God this program is also on YouTube and on Facebook to stream and all that. So then it will be anytime anybody comes across it, will have a knowledge of it. But Mr. Tinedu, next month is Father's Month, and as a father, I think you've done amazing 10 years. I just want to, I have a package that I'm going to give to my, fathers next month, but this is a cloth from, please sit. This is a pack from GTP Soviets. What's it? Thank you very much for watching it. And this is soap, also from Walmart, Africa, as well for you. And my two daughters, this is the second time they're coming. We're still on the Mother's Month, so I can't let you do it. We're celebrating mothers. So I have this hamper from Walmart, Africa. It's supposed to be for, so we give one to Dr. Glover, and then another to Dr. Charlie. You are mothers not only to your family, your children, but to many people who come to you. I guess the emotions you express and everything, the emotional investment you make and everything. I'm sure seeing your parent is not, your patient is not easy. But that interview we must do. We must have the two of the interview personality. Why we decide to go there. what people said to you? Didn't your parents and friends think you must be crazy for going to do this? But thank you very much. I have another one for Esron Balloons, Mr. Tinedo, for fathers. This is for fathers. So this is for you as well. God bless you, and may you live to see that day when you have that positive news. All the best. And doctors, keep doing what you know how to do best for us. God bless you. Before I take a break, let me acknowledge some of the sponsors of these packages that I've given to my guests today. That's the Pan-African Leadership Institute. It is an executive education institute providing professional leadership courses. Now in June, they are recruiting for corporate leadership course for 4 Saturdays. It's going to be online, and it's a cross-cultural leadership, corporate communication, and self-confidence skills for leaders. And then in August, you're going to have another one for entrepreneurial leadership. That's for 4 Saturdays as well. And that's going to focus on raising funds for your business, growing your business locally and internationally, and executive coaching for entrepreneurs. You can enroll today by going to www.panafricanleadershipinstitute. No, it's www.panafricanleadership.institute. Yeah, and the telephone number is on the screen. You can get in touch with them. Thank you to Wilma Africa Limited, producers of naturally cholesterol-free Frital vegetable oil, Frital sunflower oil, Frital seasoning, Fortune rice, Fortune margarine, Jama laundry soap, and Allied toilet soap. Appreciate all mothers and fathers for their guidance, leadership, and support. And they are on campaign to make sure that women live well. We say, women, you deserve to be well. And thank you to Esron Balloons as well for this beautiful hamper for a father who is taking care of. Parenting never ends. It continues till you die, indeed. Well, I'll be back with a bit of me. You know, as a country, it's no secret that our health system is sick. You know, we have a lot of challenges when it comes to our health system. And so it is more of we making sure that we engage in preventive measures. That is, do all we can to prevent getting sick than to hope that we'll get sick and be treated. But there's certain conditions that you can do anything about. There are that you don't know you don't really have to do anything, and you don't even know the cause, and it happens to you. It can happen to anybody, everybody and anybody. It's a quote unquote, a possible candidate. And this includes multiple sclerosis. It is gradually gaining grounds. Not just that, but autoimmune diseases are gradually gaining grounds in our country. And we need to invest in our health system to make sure that we have what it takes. We need to educate our people. We need to read about these things. We need to know the symptoms. We need to be bold to ask doctors questions. We all need to rise and work together. We need to connect. Parents are struggling. There are parents with children with autoimmune diseases and conditions who are struggling. The emotional stress, the psychological stress, the financial stress, the stigma. Oh Ghanaians, I don't know what has become of us. Or have we always been like this? We become so unkind towards each other, building connections. Because you know what? As one of my panelists years ago said to me, disability is an open-ended club. Anybody can join. Anybody can join at any given time. And so you make sure that if it hasn't happened to you yet, you don't jump to conclusions and think that, yeah, the Bible says he who thinks he's standing must watch it. Can happen to anybody. Let's be kind to each other. Let's have a unifying voice. Let's have a unifying purpose to make sure we get what it takes to help our nation become healthy. I'm a woman with super crazy faith in God. I pray. I believe in prayer. I believe in fasting. I believe in miracles. But I know God has given us wisdom. And he's given us these angels called doctors and nurses and midwives, health professionals, what have you, who we need, who have what it takes to help us stay healthy. Thanks for watching. See you same time next week. Bye for now.